Showtime. All right. So happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Happy
All right.
Sunday.
Okay. Welcome to the podcast where we talk life, love, and literature. I'm author Sierra London, and along with my friends, author Ella Wren and writer Michelle Ingrid, we are Women on Words. And so if you normally follow the show, you know that the third Sunday of the month that we do book club. But last Sunday, Michelle had to be at the JOB. So we were not. That's right, the BILLS. So we were not online. So we are here today. Hi, Jennifer. It's so good to see you. So we are here today on the fourth Sunday of the month to discuss Conversion by Misty Walker. And this is our first time going live. So thank you all so much for joining us. So I'm going to start off by saying, well, how are you all? How are you ladies doing? Because I haven't really seen you all week. Y'all doing well? Good. Okay. Yes. That's always good. I'm doing good too. So I'm going to start off by reading the back cover. And this was Lisa's choice, author Ella Wren. So she's going to be leading the book discussion today. So, Conversion by Misty Walker, a BWWM romance from the author of Vindicated and Bohemian Law. Tiana, falling for an enemy is taboo. Falling for a guy who stands for everything you and 3 generations before you have fought against, unthinkable. But the day Gunner Cox saved me from a fire was the day my heart no longer belonged to me. It belonged to the damaged and broken boy being dragged down by a monster who shares his DNA. Gunner, race, hate, war. It's all I know. Until Tiana Williams enters my life and my heart. Now I'm done riding the fence between good and evil. I will fight my demons and I will get the girl, even if it kills me. All right. Lisa, it's all yours. Take us where you want us to go.
All right. Well, first and foremost, I am thankful that you guys agreed to read the book because I know sometimes it may have been a trigger throughout the book. I know Michelle was triggered. I can just wait and see our discussion. But I felt that it was very personal. And it was also very valid for the times that we're living in to read this particular book. And it was set in 2017, which isn't too far off. And with all the verdicts and everything going on this particular week, it was like right on time. So first and foremost, how were you triggered and are you okay?
Okay, I'm going to start. Because this book, so let me just say this to the audience, and we don't like to give away everything, but the hero in this book is, he's in a white supremacist group, and they are very active. And the heroine, Tiana, like she said in the back cover blurb, is from a family, 3 generations of proud Black women who have fought for social justice. And so this book opens with a 6-year-old Gunner, our hero, coloring because he's an artist. And his dad is getting ready for a rally. And his dad always forces Gunner or calls him in to watch him get dressed. So he knows he's teaching him the ropes, right? He's enculturating him into this. So it's interesting what you said, Lisa, because you also see Gunner's mother at the very beginning of the book. And even though you never see her at a rally or anything, it's obvious that, she supports this too. And
well,
all right. Okay. We can argue that out. Okay. Because we probably will. But what I will say is I felt like after reading this blurb that there should have been a trigger warning in the blurb because we see quite a bit of violence in the book. directed at women, directed at Gunner when he's a young child or a boy. We actually see crimes committed in this book against persons and property. So it was triggering, but I was intrigued enough by the way that Misty crafted the story to want to finish it, like to push through those really emotional parts. Watching the news, like you said, over the last decade or so, and seeing increasing violence in our cities, in our country. I'm not going to say it wasn't difficult. It was challenging. It was a challenging read, but I appreciate Misty's skill in tackling this topic. I'll say that. Over to you, Michelle.
I'll say I decided to listen to the book because I figured if I read it, I'd put it down and I wouldn't want to pick it back up. So not because of the skill of the author. I will be the first one to tell you that most of the time when I read romance, I tend to read, I'm your rom-com reader. Nothing can't be solved without it being really funny. This book not funny.
No, this book not funny
at all.
This book not funny.
It's not supposed to be.
Right.
I thought it was interesting that the two characters are sort of on the different sides of the spectrum, and that this is a young lady who goes to rallies and marches, comes from a family who goes to rallies and marches. Whereas I feel kind of like I'm personally feel like the sandwich generation. Like my mom was from that generation that had to march in the 60s. My mom she didn't march herself because she was new to this country in 68, but she's from that generation where if they were working in the background, doing the paperwork, she was kind of a little bit like Tiana in that she was in the background, not so much at the march, but they were out there kind of like forwarding messages of, love and togetherness and, promoting people being able to worship together. And that was a big one for her.
Right.
And then I am an HBCU graduate who, I still remember the year when I was in college, somebody made a comment about how Howard students had become lazy because they weren't protesting anything. And I remember one of the people, one of the arguments at that little lull of a time was, we out here every Friday opposing apartheid. What you want? Like,
exactly.
What is there for us to protest? And then now my nieces, my college age nieces, are out there protesting.
Yes,
now.
mine too.
Kind of like feeling like this sandwich generation.
Yeah. So
I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't like crowds, so you won't catch me at your march. I'm not that. It's not that I don't want to. I'm just not good in big outdoor crowds.
Right. And that's interesting because that was Tiana as well. Like she said she was kind of socially inept, and we saw that play out very early in the story.
I'm real good in small groups and in portioned and controlled situations. I don't put myself in, like, you will never find me out there on a Thursday night after Thanksgiving dinner shopping.
Okay.
So
you're not a Black Friday girl.
No.
Okay.
Never.
Okay. Cyber Monday got you written all over it. Got it.
Exactly. I'm the girl looking around at my folks at Yankee Stadium talking about y'all gonna need to behave around me.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm not there. So I understood her sitting in the background as much as she did, but I struggled with this. The language was very hard for me. I work in a very controlled environment where we hear people say bad things, but they have to say them in appropriate ways. Otherwise, sanctioned or censured, or have words taken down. So it's very much that sense of that non-controlled language that was very kind of like triggering for me right off the bat.
All right, so I'm going to say...
That wasn't it. I'm sorry.
I'm going to say that I like that Misty made it raw, because to me, it was a very raw situation. Like, being a part of a hate group is not censure, right? I mean, these people are very guttural with their hatred, and they want you to know it, and they want it in your face. And I felt like the character that was Gunner's dad was very much that character. Mm-hmm. Like Misty did such a great job of crafting this person that you don't want to like, and she made sure you did not like him from the first page all the way to the last
I want
page.
him out in the same city he might be in.
But that's the thing. He's in every city. Point. Go ahead.
There was absolutely nothing redeemable about his character, and that is exactly what he needed to be in this story.
Yes.
He was a villain.
Can I say that struck me too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not that I believe in any way, shape, or form that, like, I kept thinking every villain is the hero of his own story, right? You know, that's what we're taught as writers. And I kept thinking that I almost expected, and I was surprised when the book didn't do it this way. I almost expected that, as mean as this guy was in terms of the way he's like, I want things to be this way, I thought he would love this son that he created that was supposedly this perfect amalgamation of what he says is supposed to be the perfect world. And I kept thinking that the way he's written, he's like, oh, my son is of this perfect creation of this union of these two perfect types of people, but I hate him too unless he's saying exactly what I tell him to do.
But in his environment that he grew up in, he is all about hate. And I'm sure his father did the same thing to him. Right. So he didn't know how to show love. All he did was dominate people and force them to do what he wanted.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I appreciated about Gunner's father, since he is so big on the page, is that this man is so full of hatred. Okay, this is a Caucasian man, of course, who is a business owner. He owns his own business. He had plenty of customers, diverse customers. He hates them too. And we see him eventually sabotage his own income with this hate. And what I like about how Misty showcased him on the page is that he hates so much that, of course, this is a person who cannot show love, who does not recognize love, who is a person he hates so deeply that you see that manifested in his intimate relationships with his partner, who's the wife, who also supports him in what he is doing. Because she says, of course, baby, I support the cause. If I didn't have Gunner, of course, I would be down there with you, marching.
She won't be down there.
She wasn't sincere.
I hear what you're saying.
To say that.
I hear what you're saying, but she did not leave this situation.
You know what's
very difficult.
So I'm gonna let y'all go ahead because Mama didn't say that. Y'all trying to extrapolate that. I didn't hear that woman say that on the page.
I'm gonna let Lisa handle that first.
Okay, go ahead. Y'all
for the mother. The mother, when you can see it, she said, "I don't know how." When he went to jail, I don't know how much more I could take of this. And he was over the phone. He was like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh, nothing." So you could tell his will was forced over on her. She was an abused woman. She was beaten and battered. And I know it's the natural instinct to say, why don't she just leave? But with abused women, sometimes they can't. They're so inundated with the fear of what happens if I do leave? Where am I going to go? There's nothing for me. Nobody loves me but him. So, I mean, I didn't get the feeling that she absolutely supported it. She may have at one time, but I'm pretty sure Gunner got his heart from the mother.
Okay.
That's what I saw.
Okay.
So I wondered, she mean mugging me. I kept wondering if the mother was kind of like that character that we're not quite sure her purpose, Mimi. And I kept thinking, this young lady brought up in this cause and told you're going to marry this guy and you're going to do what you're told. And then you literally, it's like the abuse victim that moves from one abuser who's the parent to the abuser who is the relationship partner. And I wondered, not giving her an out, but I wondered because when she said, yeah, if I didn't have Gunner, and I'm thinking, we see people out there with their kids all the time. And I kept
that
thinking,
is true at the rallies.
Out there with that baby, she would have taken him out there with that baby. And
Mm-hmm.
she didn't want to be there. And I kept wondering, was this something where, oh, he was so handsome when we first met. He was so forceful and I really liked him. And then it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I just got myself into. Like, whoo. I mean, personally, I kept thinking, where's her family? Because Gunner never
too.
Her grandparents. And I'm like, did she get disowned when she got involved with him? Are they in jail because they did stuff like this man that she's married to? Because I kept thinking, at which point did she not pick that child up and say, that's right, baby, you go to that rally, and be like, he get home and she's gone. The child is gone. I just kept thinking, I know leaving is a whole different story, but I kept wondering, is this a person that has been, she didn't go into that, but I kept wondering, is this someone who's been isolated? Because he doesn't have anyone. I mean, except for this Misty girl. I don't know if he even mentioned friends. He mentioned the father and the father's buddy and this girl, Mimi, excuse me, I'm sorry. This girl that the father wanted him to marry, but there's no like other thing.
No he had no friends. He was isolated.
Right. I agree.
And growing up in school, he said he was exposed that his father was a white supremacist and everybody bullied him at school. And that was one other thing I wanted you guys to think about. When Gunner was young, he was isolated and he had no one. He was like all alone. I felt so bad for him. He lived in a household with a man that was all about white supremacy and abuse. And then when he went to school, he was bullied because his father was talking about white supremacy and abuse. So he got beat up at school. He got beat up at home. He had nobody to actually talk to. And he was so isolated. And I felt so bad for this character. And I was so happy when he met Tiana.
Yeah. So, okay. I was empathetic to Gunner's situation. So, I think it's in chapter 3. It's very early on in the book that, the mother leaves the page, and I'm not going to give it away, but mom leaves the page and you have Gunner and his dad and the brothers. Okay. And Gunner, it's his 16th birthday, and he's thinking about traditionally how his birthday should be celebrated. And the author spends quite a bit of time developing Gunner's, like showing you Gunner's situation, what his life is like. In fact, the early part of the book, more than 7 or 8 chapters, is really setting the stage for Gunner a lot. And you see Gunner at a tattoo parlor. And he's 16 years old, and his dad is taking him to go get a tattoo. I was not okay seeing this child being forced to have this hate symbol tattooed on his chest.
And I got the feeling, how big did you anticipate it was?
It was across his chest.
I felt like it went from, because when he talked about the tattoo from his neck down past his sternum, so we're talking about to his belly, and from nipple to nipple, and what I imagine, because the tattoo artist later in the story describes it in heavy black ink,
1 inch,
like there's
1 inch dark ink.
1 inch of heavy dark ink of a hate symbol tattooed on your chest from your neck all the way down to your navel for your 16th birthday.
I don't want my own name that big on my chest.
Girl.
With no choice.
Yeah, I think I'm fabulous, and I still don't want that tattooed on my chest that big. So very early on, she has cemented into your mind that everything in Gunner's life is, for lack of a better word, shit. Like nothing is good. Not every day, not special days like birthdays, not holidays, not school, work, because he works for his dad in his auto body shop. So he literally cannot get away from his father's influence. And the way the father's network is built, like he has no escape. Everywhere he goes, someone is seeing him, or they're going to come back and get him. And so I know, like, we're like 20 minutes in, so I know we have to talk about Tiana. So I'm turning back over to you, Lisa, because I want to know what she thought about Tiana and her opening.
Just to piggyback on that, even when his father went away to jail, he still had a stronghold over him. So there was no escaping for the child. But for Tiana, let's move on, because I know you're looking at the time.
Mm-hmm.
With Tiana, I absolutely thought she was a hoot. She was kind of goofy, but she was a nerd. And she was a really smart girl. She was a nerd, socially awkward, but they described her as very beautiful.
Mm-hmm. She described herself, honey, as very beautiful.
Well, she said I appreciate that. Facts. That was just facts, honey.
Yeah, she did. That's just a fact. She's like, I'm cute.
So I enjoyed her, and I also enjoyed her relationship with Lucy. So what do you guys think of her and Lucy?
Okay, so honestly, so Tiana is a likable character. She is. You actually meet her in class, and she acknowledges that she's physically attractive, but she's a little bit of a klutz. And once people get to know her, and not only is she klutzy, physically klutzy, but she's a little bit of socially awkward, like that drives boys away. So she admits that, I may have a hand in why I don't have a boyfriend or had a boyfriend. And the story actually opens with like one of her study partners, Astro, asking her out on a study date. And she like, oh, and she's so excited in her head, y'all. She started coughing and sputtering. The whole class got to stop and look. He said, I actually thought she was having a seizure. So that's how excited she is emotionally, that at the prospect of having, a male interest. So I thought that was a cute intro to her. Now, Lucy, her best friend, is sexually expressive.
Yes.
And womanly. So I wasn't sure what to do with Lucy outside of that, because I wasn't exactly sure what she brought to what did she bring to the relationship for Tiana, outside of she was very good at speaking her mind, and Tiana is growing in that. Like, she's very good from a professional standpoint at what she does. She wants to help people, and she particularly wants to help young people. So I wasn't surprised that she was empathetic to Gunner's situation. Michelle?
I got a lot of thoughts about Tiana.
Okay. Got lots of thoughts.
Number one, first thought was this the first boy that ever looked at her? Because you got that feeling like, oh, this was like new boy syndrome, but she didn't really have any use for him. She didn't really want to. I never got the feeling that she truly wanted to date this boy. She might have been excited about his attention, but she never fully expressed, I want to be his girlfriend.
I agree.
I mean, she's a college student, and she has had absolute what felt like no true sexual interest in this boy. At all. She could say that it got hot and handsy, but then, okay, so I'm gonna ask forgiveness. Okay. I wasn't sure how bright she was, and I'm gonna tell you why.
I'm gonna tell it now.
This girl ended up in the hospital. First, okay, step one. Let me rewind.
Set the stage.
Right, this is the moment in Hamilton when the stage started going backwards. Let's rewind.
Okay, let's rewind.
So there was that moment in the club when she get all handsy, all up on her boyfriend, like, this my man, why are you talking to him? But the first chance to get cut out and I kept thinking, this chick going home with them two boys, and you gonna let her go home with them two boys, and you don't think your boyfriend's gonna get on an action after you don't.
Okay, but I gotta say,
I was like, you don't want this boy.
Okay, so she's 20 years old, because I was kind of like that with that role, but I was listening to this book with my husband, with Mr. Awesome, right? And so he was like, she need to put up or shut up. She's like, she got to step up or what?
Typical
because
man.
He is such a boy when it comes to sex.
But she didn't want to own it.
Right. So he
where
was
my head
like,
was.
yes. So he's like, okay, you had this other girl encroaching on your man. So I totally understand her response. But I understand, like, I get it. I don't want to sleep with you, but you said you was mine. So she ain't going to come and roll up in this club and be up all on you. Like, I'm so there with her. I'm with her.
I was going to be in the house wanting to know what she was doing in the house.
But wait a minute. Just because you got a boyfriend don't mean you got to sleep with him.
No,
that is true.
You have to sleep with him. My point was that she was trying to let go and said, I'm going to let go and let God handle this one. And I was like, you don't want him. If she wanted him, she would have staked. I would have staked a bigger claim. Number one. Number two. So this woman ends up in the hospital, and this boy is burned because he saved her. Her first instinct when she saw him was like, "Oh shit, this is bad. We're in trouble." But yet they end up in the hospital. She wants to thank him for saving her.
Oh, understandable.
Says, no, and mind your business.
Okay.
And instead of listening to her mother, who has marched in these things in the years, she decides to hook up with the nurse, Addie, I think her name was, and say, I need to meet this guy and thank him. Meeting him and thanking him are completely different from meeting him, thanking him, and going to visit him regularly and giving him your phone number and wait for it, showing up at his hotel room with bucket, mop, and maid services.
Yeah,
that's what I put down the book. For me. Texted Sierra and said, "I'm not okay."
Yeah.
I don't know if I like this girl.
The bucket mop thing was a bit much, and I don't know of any woman that I've associated with that would go over to a hotel and clean. I know somebody that would pick up the phone and say, "Can you get the maid service in here?" But not to go over it to his hotel.
You're gonna need these to clean your place. I'm not doing it.
Okay, I'm with you on that.
Pay somebody to clean my place.
I'm with you on that. That whole, as we've said, that white savior kind of
that little
response,
there.
And the black woman showing up with her maid supplies. I didn't like that part. That was too much for me. Could have done without that.
I have dated some of the prettiest men in the world, and I have never, ever said, "Oh, your place is dirty. I'm gonna bring the mop and the thing, and I'm gonna help you clean it." No.
Mm-mm. Yeah. And I think, and we talk about diversity in books, right? And representation matters, but what that representation looks like, how it's manifested matters.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm going to say this, and I genuinely thought this.
Okay.
I could see, no matter what the race, I could see a young 20-year-old, actually I'm thinking more 18, 19. I could see that outgoing girl showing up. I'm going to be helpful. So I won't put it all on race or color, but it was a bad look. I was like,
bad look.
If I was a sensitivity reader on this, I'd have been like, take that out.
Yes.
And don't do that.
But wait, I don't know any 20-year-old.
You should use these things and they will help to get your, I might have cleaned it up that way, but that scene it didn't work for me. It just felt too out of step. I won't lie. And I know that the writer meant well in what this character was being helpful for him. But I was like, I'd have sooner I don't know. Yeah. I wouldn't have gone there. As I said, cleaning my own house is hard enough.
You have it. There you go.
Yeah, I'm not trying to clean somebody.
Yeah, I asked you guys about triggers. That was my trigger in the book. It had nothing to do with all the bad stuff that happened. That was my trigger. I don't know any 20-year-old that is gonna go clean up somebody else's house. First of all. Because when you're 20, your mama, if you still living at home, mama's going to force you to get up and clean on Saturdays.
I don't know too many 20-year-olds that clean up their own room. Let's know talking about going somewhere else, helping somebody clean up their room. I can see them getting there, eating all the food and sitting up on the couch and falling asleep because that's usually what happens when my niece comes over.
As a teenager, every Saturday morning, I had to clean 3 floors of wooden steps in an old Victorian, 100-year-old Victorian house that I grew up in.
You so good.
Girl, let me tell you, every Saturday, my mom and my grandmother had to be like, Michelle, you need to clean. You need to wipe down the stairs and the landings and the banister. And every Saturday, I think I said tons of bad things under my breath because I did not want to. So the idea, I mean, I might roll a vacuum.
Yeah.
Say, oh, Michelle, I'm moving. Will you help me clean up? I might roll the vacuum from a girlfriend. But I always, the one lesson I always learned was never treat a boyfriend like a husband.
Like a husband.
Yes.
Never.
You don't get wife duties.
You to be, and then they expect you then to be a wife or an employee without the payments or the benefits.
I know that's right. And you just brought back a bad trigger for me. I can think of the one time, no, not the one time, that my mom had told me to mop the floor. And I was like, I'm tired of mopping her floor. I'll teach her a lesson. Girl, I got her crystal salad bowl, a glass salad bowl off the refrigerator, filled it up with spick and span, and I mopped that floor.
You sound like a bad story about a girl.
When she came home, she said, girl, what? I did. I'm like, I'm sick of cleaning this house. I didn't do all this stuff. And girl, she came home and she said, this floor look horrible. Let me do it myself. She went out to go get the mop bucket and it was full of leaves and dirt. She said, where you put the water to clean the floor? I immediately started crying. Tears rolling down my face. I was looking at my dad like, Daddy saved me. Daddy saved me. Man down, woman down. Girl, she hit me so hard. I know I met Jesus right then for the first time in the flesh.
Deserved it. You deserved it. Because you knew what you were doing when you picked up that bowl. You knew exactly what you were doing when you picked up that bowl.
I had to be told to do it.
I know.
I ain't messing around with doing it, but I had to be told. Don't you think it's time you get started on that?
So what do y'all think about that scene where when Tiana's mother, grandmother, and great grandmother find Gunner out in the driveway and they know who he is and they know his affiliation to hate groups? What y'all think about that scene and how Tiana responded?
I was scared for Gunner because I know the matriarchs of the family don't play, especially when it comes to their baby.
I didn't give a harm, man.
Well, I don't know. White supremacists. They didn't know him. They didn't know him.
But it did bring back memories of that time when I was leaned up on a car at the end of the block with this boy, and my mama came walking home from work. She took the long way home, and I was like, dang, never she should take the other way. That day she walked down the other way. And she saw me, and I was like, oh, mommy, this is such and such. And she said, you should beat me home. And then she took off walking real fast to the house. And I was like, I got to go. That's what that moment brought back, that sense of, ooh, I have some explaining to do.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking, she was really forceful with her mom and her grandma.
She was.
And I thought, are you crazy? That was my first thought. My second thought, I won't lie, my second thought was, because a human being here, you made that child walk 7 miles home with burns on his arms and stuff?
You sound like my husband.
I just kept thinking, that's
how I felt.
That's a lot. I mean, I'm like, you defended it so hard, and then you let a person with burns walk 7 miles. That's a long walk. I walk 4 miles a day, and that takes me a good hour.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, a little over an hour. So I kept thinking, that's a long walk. That's almost a 2-hour walk. If you're not like,
I thought the same thing, Michelle.
They respond to one another really interesting in that moment, right? So the family finds out that Tiana and Gunner actually have a friendship. And when confronted with it, Tiana's first response, it's like the first time I really saw her like really stand up and embrace like adulthood. Because like Michelle said, she's kind of, she's kind of like an emerging adult in this book, right? You see some things that are kind of childish of her, and then you see some things that are more representative of young womanhood. And so she's confronted, by her mom, grandma, great grandma, which is a whole lot of mama power. Okay. All three of them together. One is enough, but you put all three of them in the room and they coming up against
They live together.
Yes. That's a lot.
4 generations living together.
Yes. And you see Gunner just kind of close in on himself because he is so used to people just looking at him. And so Gunner's attractive, but regardless of how attractive he is, the way the author has crafted him, he's a part of a hate group. So there are enough symbols and a kind of a stereotypical look to him that this is a kid that you probably want to stay on the other side of the street. And he actually says that people see him and they cross the street. They see his dad, they run across the street. So I thought it was interesting to see him close in on himself and just walk away. And like y'all said, her house is 7 miles away from this hotel where he's staying when he gets out of the hospital because he rescues her from a fire and nobody calls him. Nobody comes to visit him. Nobody comes to see him at all for the weeks that he's in the hospital.
Which is interesting considering he comes from a community that kind of encroaches on each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, it's because he got caught on camera saving a black woman.
On camera saving a black woman.
And he embarrassed them.
Yes. But what I love about how Gunter handled that situation is he used that to break out. That was like the break in the Iron Curtain, so to speak. Like that little bit of break where it went, local news, white supremacists, rescues, black young woman from fire. And he humiliated the brotherhood by doing that. And he took that opportunity to say, I'm not going back. And then this first opportunity where he's kind of embracing a friendship with someone who's shown him genuine kindness, because it's not something he's used to in his life, not from teachers, not from other students. He closes in on himself. He doesn't fight for it. So I like the way she shows that he's still not quite strong enough to fully push back against all the forces that are weighing him down.
He didn't feel worthy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And who would if growing up in his circumstances? Because everything he's ever done, he's been told he's not good enough or he's getting beaten into submission. So
into submission. Yes. Okay, Michelle, I see it. I see it brewing.
No, I was just going to ask you guys if you guys noticed something. And maybe it's because I was listening to the audiobook. When he's in the hospital, they have that moment where Addie says, I think her name, I hope I'm saying it right, that her name is Addie. The nurse's name is Addie.
And she's black.
And she's like, I don't know why. She wanted to ask her boss, why did you put me in this room with this person, with this patient? Why did you think I would take care of this patient? And then afterwards she says, yeah, I thought that. And she goes, and then I met him and he saw this and he saw that. And she's like, she goes, he doesn't belong to them. He's not one of them. And I had that. Do you remember that moment in The Sound of Music? Mm-hmm. They are hiding in the churchyard. It's like near the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert! Sound of Music. At the end of The Sound of Music, they go to the singing festival. They leave the festival and they run to the abbey to be protected so they could try to get away. So the father doesn't have to go into the Nazi army to fight. And as they're about to escape and they're hiding behind these gates in the graveyard, Liesel's little boyfriend, who is joined up with the SS's, he's looking and they all have abandoned looking, but he just has this feeling and he's got his little flashlight and he's looking. And when he sees them, she jumps out and says, I think his name is Rolf, please. And she comes out and says, begging him to stop. And he has that moment. And then the father takes the flashlight or whatever it is away from him, the gun away from him, and he says, "You're not one of them." And that's when the boy picks up his whistle and he starts blowing to alert everybody that they're there. That brought back that moment to me where she's like, he's not one of them. He doesn't belong to them. And I kept having I wonder if that's where the author pulled that from, because I had that moment in my head of this person who either fully is all in invested or just completely not invested. And in that moment, you found out whether or not Rolf was invested. And it's kind of like in that moment when he runs into the church, we find out whether or not Gunner is invested or completely uninvested.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that moment, though. I don't think he ever was invested, because you got to see his internal dialogue throughout the entire book.
Acted on it. There were people yelling and screaming, and he's been at these marches and he's hidden in the thing. But this is the first time where he literally is putting. I mean, the other times he just hid in the middle. His father's like, "Why can't we see you?" But this time he is standing in front of his church, and they're like, "Let's burn it all down." And his first thought is, "I'm going to go." I feel like that's his line of delineation about whether or not, because he was go along to get along guy. And that was the moment when he had to make a choice. And it just made me think of Rolf in that movie, because in a weird way, when the father was like, "You can come with us," and he's like blowing his whistle because he's like not doing it. He's all in 100%. Whether he had questions or not, he answered his question in that moment. And I kind of felt like Gunner in that moment, the question about whether or not he could stand this or if he's going to walk away alone. He could have seen that and said, "Well, my father just assume I died in the fire and I'll be gone and disappear and I'm running away." And instead,
I thought that would happen.
Acted.
Yeah. I actually thought that.
Acted in that moment.
It was, I don't know. So, church burnings are
triggering.
They are.
I will say this. If it were not for the fact that we were reading this in this book club, there would have been $1 million or more on the table before you would have gotten me to pick this up on my own. This was a hard read for me.
Yeah. As a woman who actively practices I actively practice my faith, it was very, very difficult to see it not more than once on the page. I had hoped that there would be more care with that issue on the page. And what I mean by that is, and I know we don't, we're getting low on time, but at the end of the book, this family, this couple, they have an opportunity to support different things. And Gunner, though he was forced, but he grew older, but he was actively working, planning rallies, and participating in the destruction that they caused around the city. And there was no consequence from the system for Gunner's behavior at all, this whole book. And I struggled with that that there was no consequence from the system for his actions and his behavior at all. You did see it play out with his father to a certain extent, but Gunner also had a role in what he did. And then there was no consequence. And in the end, when they were contributing to causes they supported, the Black church was not in that. I'll say that. Though they had wrought quite a bit of destruction on Black churches in the community that they lived in.
I thought it was interesting that the thing that sent him into the church wasn't it like the discussion he overheard about the last church? I think they make a point. I thought that was interesting. Like he had heard this conversation about on the news where they were talking about this was the place where she's like, this is the place where my parents got married. And this is the,
I was baptized.
Like she had all these personal memories. And so I thought it was interesting that was the thing that like had him propelled. Like, this is not just a building. This is a place where people's worlds, are built. Like this is a brick or multiple bricks in building of lives and communities and stuff like that. So I thought that was interesting. I'm not gonna lie. I still feel excessively conflicted about these characters. I feel excessively conflicted about him. I think he never saw an episode of Sons of Anarchy. Otherwise, he would have known to find a way to get that tattoo covered up fast, because I could have told you they were coming, because I saw Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
They would have told you, get rid of that or they will come and get it.
Michelle, if with that kind of tattoo, you can't cover it.
Well, obviously
it's across from here to the navel.
All I'm saying is there are ways that this thing could be like he said, he could either fully black it out. And I kept thinking, dude, you might want to turn that into a square flower box. I don't know, but whatever you need to do. Because I kept thinking, they're going to come and get that tattoo. My brain went there because I've seen too much television.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry, man. Spoiler. Sorry. Spoiler.
Okay.
But to piggyback on what or to respond to what Sierra was saying, I don't believe that the black church was disrespected in a way, because Gunner, he was raised in a way of hate. He didn't know anything about the church. So he had no way of knowing how valuable the church is in our community until he saw that news program and heard the lady talk about it. And he heard the preacher say how hard it's going to be to recover. Then it triggered something in his brain like, oh my God, I didn't just burn down a building. I burned down a community icon. I burned down something really horrible. And I don't think that he really needed punishing for that, because his whole life was a punishment. He lived in nothing but horror. That's my opinion. I see all over your face that you disagree. But
I do, because if you came here and you burnt down my house and then you say, well, you know what? I came from an abusive home and this, and this, so I shouldn't be punished. I say, who got the handcuffs? When y'all getting here? So no, I do not believe that because you have a bad upbringing that there aren't consequences for your behavior.
I didn't say there weren't any consequences.
You said he shouldn't be punished. That means there's no consequences. He shouldn't be
punished, but he did have consequences. He lived an entire life of nothing but consequence. In my opinion,
it's interesting. It's funny because I won't say the book. There's a book that one of my years ago, my other book club and I read, and the character at the center of the book, he did some really horrible things, Mm-hmm. And to this day, of the 5 of us in the book club, 2 of us are the 2 that forgave this character. Mm-hmm. And we'll tell you, yeah, we still love him. But his character had to go to jail for 2 years for the stuff that he was involved in.
Because he really did do bad stuff and he hurt people and he suffered no consequences for it.
He may have hurt people, but he didn't kill anyone. So as a matter of fact,
he didn't kill anybody, Lisa?
Are you trying to ruin the book? I mean,
no, I'm not trying to ruin the book.
But when he burned down the church, he didn't kill anybody.
Okay.
He went into the second church at the rally to save lives. And that was my part of his redemption.
Okay.
I would have been okay if he went to jail for a while and she was waiting for him, like when he got out of the hospital. I would have been okay with that. And I would not have, I would have been okay with his character, and I'm not saying that every author is the author of their own story and has every right to write it the way that they should write it. And I am not judging the way she wrote it. I am saying that maybe if I were handling it for this character, I might have sent him somewhere for a year or 2 as punishment. Maybe he could have worked on his artistry there and then come out like a person who had not only been through, like I could have seen adding that aspect to the story. The author wrote the story that was the story of her heart, no judgment here. I could have seen how I might have tackled it a little differently.
Yeah, I agree with you in that because you see some of the consequences come to play out with Gunner's father, but Gunner had a role in the bad things that were happening in that city. And to say that he just has total control in that, I meet the girl, I fall in love, and I just change my life and there's no consequences. Because there were so many very real emotional moments in this book, but for the central character to have no consequences, that's what made it a little bit like, to me, the author telling the story they wanted to tell, but not putting that piece of realism in there where there's consequences for the character's behavior. Falling in love doesn't mean you don't pay the consequences for your actions, because Gunner was wreaking havoc on that city.
He didn't wreak havoc. He burnt one church, which is horrible. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but he was forced to do it. And I think he redeemed himself by saving the people that were in the other church when he saw it being burned.
And that may be the character's emotional journey, but it doesn't negate what he did. One doesn't cancel the other any more than it would in real life. If you burn down a church and then you don't burn down the next one, or you save somebody's life somewhere else, it doesn't negate, for me, it doesn't negate what you did.
If we're really talking about things, people do bad things all the time, and then they go and cut a deal with the DA and they get off scot-free. So if he would have turned in his father and cut a deal or whatever.
But he could have done that.
Waiting for him to actually, I will tell you, I thought the character was going to do that in order to see the father get penance for the other things that he did. I was actually wondering if that was going to happen. So I was kind of like, oh, okay. Because you know how you have like your brain is building up all of these potential storylines as you're going through. I'm like, okay, how was this going to turn out? Like in my brain, I was like, okay, maybe he's gonna, all right, maybe he'll, because when the father says, his father actually says something to him about, spoiler alert, they burn a cross or something on, they set a fire in front of someone's house or in front of a building. And I kept expecting him to go to this authorities, because the father says, I think at some point, if even from the beginning, the father was like pretty much saying, I got your hands dirty, and that I got your hands dirty. You can't turn me in unless you turn yourself in. And it's funny because this is so random. In the world of politics, where I partially do my day job, there's this talk about the fact that the easiest way to get a new member of anything, city council, whatever, to leave you and your activities alone is to implicate them. And it's kind of like you see them coming and you want to get that person muddy, and you see them coming, you're about to shake their hand, and right before they shake their hand, you stick your hand in the dirt and then you shake hands with them so that their hands are just as dirty as yours. That's just the visual cartoonesque talk discussion. And I kept seeing like his father sort of in that way, like, I'm going to dirty your hands so you can't tell on me. And I kept thinking, there's a possibility this character is going to do that thing to, But yeah, I mean, as I said, this was her story to tell, and I don't judge her in that this is her story. I'll say that there were a lot of triggers. We keep going back to that word. Okay. But yeah, this was an interesting foray into this subject matter. I will say I did find it a little strange, and I don't think this is spoilerish because we know that they were endgame.
Yes.
I did find it a little interesting that she didn't have as many issues with, like, I don't think I could have slept with the guy that had that tattoo, even if he was wearing a t-shirt to cover it. I'd have been like, dude, you got to figure something out with that before we go.
Was trying. He was trying. I appreciate how aware he was.
I was going to need him to figure something out before.
Let's change the subject one last time. I want to squeeze one more thing in there, and that is Tiana's relationship with Astro. How do you guys deal with that? Because he left her in the hospital, and then you don't see him get back with her until they're back in school. And I was like, what is going on with this boy? I know
nothing
you really didn't like him. I know they weren't sleeping together, but I mean, come on. It was supposed to be her boyfriend.
The boy with the hippie parents who didn't care if he had sex in his room?
Yeah.
All right, okay, so we find out later, I think it is.
She's like, where do we start?
That Astros and his parents went on vacation.
Okay, but if your girlfriend is in the hospital from a fire that she almost died from,
right?
Are you going to go on vacation?
They do driving vacations. They could have delayed.
Yes.
That's what my thought was. This is a wagon trip. You could delay it to check on your girlfriend.
Okay.
He didn't call.
Not once.
He didn't text.
Not once.
He didn't email. He didn't call her mother every day. I mean, I just kept thinking, this boy is so callous, and it brought me back to that moment of, oh, well, you're not putting out, so you're not really my girlfriend.
Thank you.
I need to lay ownership on you in front of a next boy. And I was thinking that I first of all, I didn't get the relationship between her and Astro. Like I said, I never really thought that she was that interested in me. I think she was just.
But I don't think he was that interested in her.
I think he was at one point.
I think he wanted the booty, but that was it.
He was with her for years.
Question and pause.
I don't know. Like, that's a long-term booty expedition he was on, if that's all he was after. Because they were together for a while.
Elsewhere. It didn't say that. But in my mind, Astro was boogie down with a bunch of people.
Right. But Astro was doing his thing because he was on the basketball team. He didn't have no problem finding girls.
No, that is true. He didn't. But
all the more
I think what Astro did, not only in that moment when she was in the hospital, and he was kind enough to drop off her bag and was like, deuces, going on family vacation. See you in the fall, girl. Hope your burns heal. But after that, when he found out about Gunner in that very tense moment on the campus, he could have responded a lot of different ways. But to go and put them on blast around the campus and then just abandon them to whatever end.
I'm gonna make trouble.
Yeah, he did. He made trouble. And I think that spoke volumes to where his true feelings were about Tiana. But I also feel like Tiana, I wish she had been a little bit more straightforward with Astro sooner. That, you know, she really didn't have any interest. But I can understand from a girl, this was one of her girl moments to me, who hasn't really had any serious relationships, and you have someone that's interested in you, and the sun came in, not wanting to let that go, like not wanting to like give that up, that connection, because it's the first one that we really see her really talk about in the book. So I understand that too.
I had a feeling when they started dating that he was more interested in her helping him study than them being in a relationship.
Yeah.
And I thought he was kind of using her for that. And then his sexual needs, he got somewhere else. She just didn't know about it. And then when the man just abandoned her in the hospital, I was like, dude, get away.
His mama
when the school lets back in, he pops up. Hey, who's that? Like, I know. He's jealous. What? Where you been? I don't even know you.
So I'm going to do this Love Jones movement since Michelle went all the way back to The Sound of Music. If y'all remember Love Jones with Darius Love Hall and Nina, and he said, I learned not to ask questions I don't want to know the answers to. Do y'all remember that? When she went away with old boy to New York, and then she came back, and Darius she's like, why don't you want to know? He's like, I learned a long time ago not to ask questions I don't want to know the answers to. And I think there was some of that going on with Tiana, and that because I'm not willing to go there to meet that need. So girl, just don't ask the question. That one time when you saw the woman step up at the club, like, okay, I'm not going to be disrespected all up in my face and space. But at the same time, when confronted with, well, if you go home with me, I won't take her home. She's like, oh my goodness, give me a hug. I'll see you later. Bye-bye now. Y'all have fun.
Yeah, why are you still calling him your boyfriend after that?
Yeah.
Why you still calling him your boyfriend when he left you in the hospital? That was it for me. I was like, you drop off her bag and you go on vacation. I'm here. I almost died.
Okay, ladies. We got like a minute left. We've been talking for an hour. What's our final words on this one?
Okay. Michelle?
You got 10 seconds.
I read it.
I read it. Okay.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed it, and it was my pick, so I should have enjoyed it. So
yeah. For me, I would read another book by Misty Walker.
I'm curious about what else she'd write.
Yes. So she was a new to me author, so I'm always excited when that happens. So, hello, Yolanda. And so yeah, I would definitely read another book by her. If you want an emotional roller coaster with some triggers in it, y'all read this book. So Michelle, what are we reading next month? What's our May pick?
All right. Next month, we're reading How to Fail at Flirting by Denise Williams. This is an IR romance set in a university setting.
Ooh.
And I believe our main character is actually a professor. So we're going a little older with our characters. We're staying in these schools in the college setting, but we have got an older professional character.
Oh, you know what that made me think of, right? That the author's name, silly of me to think that I
want to fly.
I know. Y'all remember Denise Williams?
I
saw her in concert when I was like 14. So yes, I remember that. Okay, so next month we will be back on the third Sunday of the month, which I believe is the 16th of May at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be going live again. This was our first live, y'all. So thank you so much for showing up. We had like 8 people on the line and we appreciate it. And today's episode was sponsored by author Ella Wren and her new release, Obsession. Y'all be sure to go out and grab that book. And also by Glam Girl Journal, stylish notebooks for Black women. So check that out on Amazon. And be sure to like the Women on Words page or the Messy Mandy page, whichever one you're following it on. And follow me, Sierra London, at Sierra London Books, author Elle Loren's author page, and Michelle Ingrid, writer Michelle Ingrid. So until next time, we will see you later. So be awesome, be amazing, be wow. That's it, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us, Romance Landia. Bye, everybody.
Bye.